Looks like we are indeed live. So that worked.
Okay. Yep,
All
another
right.
kitchen sink live microscopy. So, welcome aboard, all who are here. Um,
That's right. So we might have a couple different ideas to talk about, so we'll probably try and mash them up as we always do so well.
yep.
I was thinking with all the Epstein file stuff, there was an interesting article that I came across about kind of an epidemic of child marriage that still is going on in the US, and it's been a number of years since we've talked about age of consent and age differences and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So there's that, and then you had something that I'm sure we'll figure out some way to connect.
Yeah, the fourth turning essentially, which is yeah, we'll get into that later, I think. Um, yeah.
So yeah, so I guess start off by just saying with this article, it's kind of shocking that even even up until last year, even in Washington State, you could actually marry a kid, um,
Yeah, that is
and
wild.
and it's still totally illegal or totally legal in most states.
Hmm.
And kind of like the top 10 are Nevada, Idaho, Arkansas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Utah, Alabama, West Virginia, Mississippi. Kind of
That's
hearing a
that
little bit of
that
a
that tracks.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, why is that? What's
Well,
up with the whole like South and marrying kids thing?
I
Like,
think it's something that goes way back. It's like a historical thing back when, you know, that was just the norm. People have this notion that everybody died young back then, but that's a statistical fallacy essentially, because basically if you could get past childhood, early childhood, you probably might live into your 70s, but so many children died young. And of course, if
mhm.
you work on a farm, there's a lot of hazards and people would die young in that regard. um, so I think that was kind of just a tradition of like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you would marry young. And
I think the die
you know,
young thing was more of like a medieval um, phenomenon.
yeah, it started to, like, after the industrial revolution started happening, it got a lot better even before then. But it I think it's like, oh well, people wanted to start early, start a family early, especially when you're talking farming where you need all the hands you
Mhm.
can get. Um, and it's like there's only so much of a window where
Mm.
especially a woman can bear children safely. And so I think the idea was, oh well, start early, start as early as you can, so
Right.
you get a head start essentially. And it's like, okay, that is logical. I don't see a problem with that. And I think back then younger people were a lot more adult than they are today in
Well,
a way.
I was just going to point that out. Like, m maturity doesn't entirely rest upon like a person's chronological age. A
No.
lot of it has to do with experience and stuff. Now, that
Mhm.
said, there's absolutely no reason anyone today should be getting married that young because
Mhm.
we have it way easier now. So maturity is actually taking a lot longer.
Mhm.
If anything, I would argue for uh, maybe not calling people adults until they're like 25, like, of
Sure.
course, that might be a third of your life, but you know what? We have a society where that's okay,
And
like,
there's a lot more time for childbirth. Like we have a lot more options now. So it, yeah, I just, I mean, just because it's legal doesn't mean you should do it. So
right.
I wonder, like, if you look at the trends over time, I think you'd see like a downward trend in people marrying young like that, because it's socially unacceptable nowadays. I mean, imagine me if I had like a 13-year-old wife. Like how strange, like the amount of
Right.
criticism walking around town and stuff I get. that people, so it's like nobody, it's kind of like smoking. Like walking around, it's like I hardly see anybody smoking a cigarette, and when I do, it's just like,
Uh,
wow, that's weird. Someone's smoking a cigarette, huh?
so many people in Germany smoke. It's crazy. It's
Really?
like a culture shock uh,
Mm-hmm.
in a way because like all of that kind of got done away with in the US and
Yeah, yeah.
still
Nobody
totally like
smokes
totally
now.
normally socially acceptable here and
Yeah, I think
um,
France also is pretty smoky.
yeah.
But as far as like the child marriage thing, it's not like it's pretty minimal, I think, in the US compared to other countries across the world. There are places where it's kind of the norm. It's just like socially accepted. Like, oh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, okay, like numbers wise, it's minimal. The shocking part is how many there are in spite
yes.
of the social
Yeah.
uh, stigmas that are attached to it. And I feel like the part we should not be overlooking is the whole link to the Epstein thing, where even in this article, it kind of points out some of these age differences would be otherwise considered sex crimes, but the
Mhm.
marriage makes it totally okay.
Well, that's what I was going
So
to say. It's a measure
that's
of
why it's
hypocrisy.
probably still allowed, you know,
Well,
like
it's
it's to open the door for these pedophiles, you know.
well, and it's yeah, and it's a measure of hypocrisy because like if you didn't get married and you just had physical relations together, well, that would be
Yeah,
the state would come down on you. But if you
yeah,
get married, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's okay. You know, it's part of marriage or whatever. It's the same thing with like prostitution and going out on a date or
right.
whatever, right? Like, oh, you're paying a bunch of money. Like, let's say a guy pays a bunch of money for dinner and a movie with the expectation of sex at the end of the night. Um, that's perfectly fine. But if you just skip all the buying stuff and just pay the money directly, well, that's not fine. Like, okay, well, that no, like, but they're the same thing, you know.
Yeah,
Like it's either that's okay or it's not. You can't be like, oh well, but now you add in like a third party into the mix, and all of a sudden uh, it's okay. Like, well,
right.
but you were saying it's morally not okay because of what, like
And what is I mean, a government recognized marriage have to do with morality? Like
well,
nothing.
I've talked about that before. That yeah, it doesn't. It has nothing to do with it at all. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's moral and right.
No.
You know, like there's a hell of a lot of stuff that like the law says is perfectly fine, and I would say I don't think so.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we talk about that often with a variety of subjects, you know, law, morality, ethics. These things seldom overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
you know, even taking law out of the question, you can make a lot of arguments for something being moral but unethical.
true.
Like most
Mhm.
people even think that those two terms are interchangeable, but they're not.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Well,
I would argue they go hand in hand a lot more than the law goes with either.
yes,
But
I would agree. Uh huh. This is true.
mm,
Well, and I think that's the I guess the illusion that people have is like, oh, you know, follow the law essentially. But well, you know, maybe we should be thinking about like a societal um, ethical structure or something. Consider more than just what the state says. That we should be thinking about what is actually right, regardless of what the law says.
right.
Because there are things that are on the books illegal, but they're ethical and moral, like things that you can do that
Yeah.
you know in the right context. It's like, hey, just violating the law is not unethical or
Subsequent
amoral.
demise.
Yeah, yeah. We have a song about that.
Actually, it just came out. The reissue came out, and
Nice.
Eric's wearing his Altair shirt, and
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. From that era.
so yeah, check that out on streaming. Altair Blue Marble. But yeah,
Mhm.
well, the the one thing I actually kind of feel positive vibes toward cancel culture for is I think it is providing a little bit of an ethical framework for society outside of law.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Um,
I think it depends. Sometimes it can get a little bit carried away. I
yeah.
think that's really where the problem lies, but it's always in a state of flux. So it's
Mhm.
adapting and adjusting kind of to whatever is going on in the culture. And
Mhm.
but it's like, yeah, that is a tool that can be enough people pushing against something can affect change.
Yeah.
Look at the civil rights movement. That's a good example right there.
And it's arguably more effective than jail time.
Yes.
So, like,
Yeah.
um,
Well, being
yeah,
ostracized by your like your people, that's a powerful thing.
yeah.
Like look at certain countries like Japan, for instance. Like the last thing you'd ever want to do is dishonor your family. And here, like in the States, people do that all the time, just completely in a cavalier way. Like it doesn't really matter because here we don't see that family connection. It's the individual, and
Mm.
but like that is something to consider. That maybe I don't know. I'd like to see a cultural shift more towards like consideration of everybody around you and the
Yeah.
decisions that you make and how it impacts people, and that maybe you should be like always that should always be in the top of your mind when you're making, well, not when you're like, oh, what kind of bread am I going to buy, but bigger things that influence, like have influence to the rest of your society.
Well, I
um
mean, speaking of like needing to change out of the same old rhetoric over and over again, that kind of plays into the topic you had wanted to bring up.
mhm.
This fourth turn thing, like cycles of repeating social behavior, let's say,
Yeah.
and kind of forgetting your history and just repeating it over and over again with
Mhm.
different actors. Uh,
Yeah, well, different generations, it's a generational
mhm.
cycle. And yeah, the idea, like their initial thing, let me see here, pull up the name so I get it right. Strauss-Howe generational theory. So it's two people, who William Strauss, Neil Howe, who are they came up with this idea, that there's either events that happen cyclically, or that like society kind of builds to a certain tipping point, and then everything like, and we're actually currently, according to their theory, at that fourth turning point where something big might happen and we'll go back over. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to be bad stuff, and it's like, well, sometimes it's bad things, but typically what ends up happening is there's kind of a reset, and things get better. That
Mm.
oh, we see the error of our ways, and we're like, oh yeah, let's fix that. And that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the universe, the way the universe and physics works and stuff, everything is cycles. It's loops. Like there is no straight line. And so you always like the Mayan calendar. Remember back in 2012, everybody's like, "Oh, it's the end of the Mayan calendar." It's like, dude, you don't understand how the Mayans thought it was a cycle. That, oh yeah,
Mm.
and see, in their philosophy, it was kind of the same thing where there's a major event at this throughout this wheel turning essentially, and there's a big thing that happens, and then you start over again, and then it goes back around again. And I think it's kind of I would almost say it's like an inevitable state of human existence, that like that's just how we operate. um, and and that's probably good. It's like, hey, every once in a while you have to just tear everything out of your house and clean and start over, or move, or something like that. That's
Yeah.
like your renewal essentially. Otherwise you
Mhm.
stagnate, and we've been stagnating for a really long time. uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I I kind of feel like with the idea of an ethical framework taking precedence over a legal framework,
mhm.
that could be like one positive holdover from whatever this cycle is into the next, because
Mhm.
That's one thing I think is kind of absent in previous cyclical ventures
I
that we've been
agree.
through.
Yeah, and I think through, like just in my lifetime, seeing that the way things have progressed over time, it has become to the point where the law has become kind of the de facto overlord, essentially,
Right.
over everything. Like it only the law is the only thing that matters. And insert clip from of Sylvester Stallone.
I am the law.
Yeah. But and I think maybe we're reaching a point where it could kind of, maybe people have this realization that maybe that's not the right way to do things. That and I believe that because you know me, I'm all about like community involvement. That we the only way to solve problems, the better way to do things, is with the community. And
We
you're
got a comment on
oh,
the turning here. The only difference with this turning is we're a world infrastructure.
this is true.
Uh-huh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I stand by like the idea of an ethical framework
Mm-hmm.
for the whole world, like if the whole world is in on that and working together to establish what that means, like don't get me wrong, it needs a lot of work. Like
Yes.
the whole cancel culture thing is like well intentioned but poorly executed in most
Mm-hmm.
situations.
It's
Uh,
imperfect, but that's fine.
yeah, but if you expand that out, and of course there will be some cultural flux, a dialect to the ethical framework, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But if you expand that out in a world infrastructure, I think it would actually play a much better role of the law than the law would.
Yeah, it would have a stronger influence, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're getting at. Well,
Well, a stronger influence and also like a longer leash. Like,
mhm.
not, you know, you know, nitpicking at every little detail and
Mhm.
allowing room for nuance.
Yes,
Um,
that's something that's severely lacking within like judicial systems.
yeah.
That's what
It's
the
also
judge.
lacking in cancel culture, but
Mhm.
like it can be worked on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and
Whereas
I
law
think
is law, and it's just like it pretty much stays that way forever.
mhm. I think what we might see, because I'm what I'm noticing is less and less faith in the structured system of governance that we have. Like
Hmm.
everywhere, everybody is like kicking back against that, and people don't trust the institutions like the media anymore. They don't trust politicians. And you're seeing it in like this kind of, I don't know, flapping about of people grasping at straws. Like you have Mom Donnie being elected to New York City and stuff. It's sort of these like, oh, doing something different, right? Like
Yeah,
kind of taking like this kind of outlier extreme approach to see like, okay, well, because we basically
we
don't
need
believe
that.
in, well, yeah, and I don't know
There's
that
too much of the same old.
exactly, and I don't believe that he's the solution, but I think that that attitude is the solution. That we need to be dismissive of the old guard, the old ways of being in the past, of like that hasn't served us at all. In fact, it's been to our detriment. Like none of these people have done anything good for anybody. You just see things getting worse and worse. I mean, things aren't that bad, obviously, here, like in here in the US and Western countries and stuff, but they're not as good as they ought to be. That's the point. It's like, wait a
Yeah,
minute, with all of this technology and all the resources we have, we should be far, far ahead compared to where we are now. And you know what's holding it back? The government, the politicians, the media, all of these, you know, established institutions. And I think you're seeing more and more people disregarding them, and going, like alternative media now is like gets a lot more airtime than like the major media outlets, because it's like, oh, it's more honest, it's more real, it's like, oh, that's an actual person, that's just them.
Mm.
reporting on stuff rather than some huge corporate organization that obviously has an interest in keeping secrets or telling lies or spreading disinformation, and they do. And so yeah, I think we'll see, maybe that'll be kind of one of the tipping points, and it goes along with what you're saying too,
Yeah.
where people will be like, hey, the only way is if we can't trust anybody but ourselves, you know.
As long as like journalistic integrity is something that is maintained in that, because
Mm-hmm.
like now that's something that doesn't actually operate like within hard fast laws. It actually kind of is its own ethical framework that's been established
Yeah.
by a society across the world, really.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as there's some way of that being self-checking,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know that that system is perfect either, because like
No.
even within established media, you have so much bullshit. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it's really hard to put your faith in these independent outliers as well, because it's like, okay, well, what are their biases? Like,
Exactly.
where are
Well,
they getting this information? How are they interpreting it, and how are they providing it to people?
exactly. And
Like
I think that's
all of those things are things that are like you kind of have to learn that,
mhm.
and be taught that, like, hey, there are certain things that you need to, like, critical thinking skills you have to have, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
Um,
there's actually kind of a couple different methodologies for detecting bullshit, uh,
mhm.
and like if somebody's trying to game you essentially,
Yeah.
and it's pretty simple. But eventually over time you kind of develop a spidey sense, and I'd like to, like you said, I think it does come down to like education where everybody can be aware and their bullshit detector is always active. So yeah, and well, and we have a comment that corruption takes over given time. Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
does, and that's why we have to be vigilant, I think, and I think that's why also things need to be lean and mean and not
Hmm.
established. That's one of the problems with the media is it isn't a fluid organization. It's kind of like hard set. Like I remember a friend of mine worked at Adobe. Okay, the software company.
Mm.
Um, and he's like, dude, you wouldn't believe it. You would think it'd be full of a bunch of young minds and coders and all these developers that like all fresh young people. But he's like, dude, you walk around and it's a whole bunch of old guys, like 60, 70 years old and stuff. And they're making the decisions because they've been making decisions since the inception of the company.
Right.
Like, okay, well, maybe we need some fresh ideas, some new blood from time to time. We need a reset. Um, and
I mean,
and that
that's all these corporations. That's all these
yeah,
governments,
yes,
like.
the government too. Look at Congress
Hmm.
and the Senate and stuff. All these people, like they're all old. They've been there forever. Career politicians and stuff. Like, how is that even a thing? Like,
Yeah. It really shouldn't be, but um, yeah,
but that
yeah,
that comes down to
changing that is a larger beast.
it
Uh,
is. But then going into what you were saying about cancel culture and the like positive side of it is that people can actually make a decision that veers off course, like from the
yeah,
current course.
I don't remember who it was. I saw some quote from somebody I'm not really familiar with about the idea of like making shame be a little bit more of a regular thing that
Yes.
we're accustomed to. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that speaks to what we're talking about. And it's like we really need to leverage the ability to focus shame on people that are doing others wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and it
and
can't be just a handful of people on YouTube or something or TikTok
yeah.
doing that. It's got to be like overwhelming majority
Hmm.
of people so that there's no escape
Yeah.
from that. And that will act as a deterrent against corruption and bad actors and stuff, because like that's the last thing you want is for everybody to know your name and face, and you can't go anywhere, you can't at all without somebody pointing at you and shit talking you and stuff and being like, man, look at that asshole over there, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and the scary part about trying to do that to the government is that they have powerful weapons.
yes.
Namely, like their biggest gun is the M propaganda 5000.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is yes, this
that
is true, yes.
they can create shame on anybody they want to and
Mm-hmm.
make it look real. And that's something to keep in mind. Like that's the scary part. Like,
Well, it's like the Running Man in a way,
yeah.
like the original, not the new one. Jesus, but yeah, exactly. They can essentially twist events in a way that appears factual, but puts a particular spin on things to elicit a particular response from
Hmm.
people. And that comes back to education. Your bullshit detector ought to be well stocked and well tuned, so you can like see this stuff right away. Like it
Yeah,
should be blatantly obvious when there's propaganda or lies or spin put on things.
right.
And I'd like to see that kind of thing disseminated more, because that is, like you said, that is their most powerful weapon.
Right.
Um, and but that relies on ignorance of the masses to follow along with that, and that's
Yeah.
super dangerous. Like,
Well, and
woof.
to kind of tie this in with what we started talking about, like the whole shame that people toss at those who date outside of their decades, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
like far younger and such. We were talking about child marriage, and that's one thing, like maturity takes time
Mm-hmm.
and experience and stuff. I mean, like you can see a 17-year-old be quite mature if their parents were killed in a car accident and they have to raise their brothers and sisters or something.
Yeah.
But if for the most part, like you're having an easy US American life, like you might be 25 and still completely immature.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I know people who are almost my age that are in
yeah,
that category too, and it's like, man,
I
that's
still don't think
crazy.
of myself as an adult, but
I know, I know.
I've
I'll
got
be a
gray
Toys R
hair.
Us kid forever, you know.
I don't want to
Yeah.
grow up. Toys R Us kid.
Oh, like for those watching, if you haven't seen it, look up the minor key version of the Toys R Us
Oh,
theme
geez.
song. It's so sad. It's like, oh, just knowing that the stores are all closed and
Yeah.
uh,
But what I wanted to say though is the people in the cancel culture realm like throwing shame at people for, you know, oh, it's disgusting that this 50-year-old is dating a 19 or 20-year-old. And it's like, well, obviously, like if you roll those years back and think, oh my God, when they were born, this person was already on their second mortgage and third wife or something. And it's like, well, when you put things in terms of like retrospect and all that stuff, like it's not really relevant to the here and now, is
no.
it? And so you've got to have like nuance. You've got to have a little bit more of the story before you start throwing shame at people. And that's the important part of that conversation is like, do, the ethical framework can operate outside of law, but
Mhm.
what's regulating it? You have to have a
Sure.
regulation of some kind to say like, hey, the shame might actually not be deserved.
Hmm.
Uh,
Well, and when
that's
you're
important.
looking, I think people are too apt to analyze things from a linear perspective. So,
Hmm.
like, you just take both people's ages and wind them back evenly, and you're like, oh yeah, like you said, when this person was born, the other person was on their second mortgage. But if you were to go like a more logarithmic scale, to where you scale them back, like where they converge might not be that different. um,
Mhm.
in a way. So because it's like, well, you're dealing with a lifespan. You're not. I mean, yeah, we count things in calendar years and whatnot, but that isn't how things are. Experience doesn't work like that. Um, and of course, yeah, you can't just look at a number and be like, "Yep, that's the way it is." It
Mhm.
has to be nuanced, like we were talking about
Yeah.
before. It's like you have to analyze on a case by case basis. Like, oh, and because it's like, all right, well, one thing is somebody with a lot of experience and a lot of resources, right? Like a lot of money. They already have a house. They've got cars. They've got all this stuff. They're in a position to take advantage of somebody who's less experienced with less resources.
Yeah.
So that has to be accounted for. Is this person being taken advantage of, or is it a completely voluntary thing?
Right.
And that's something that is never really considered, I think.
Yeah.
Like, and you know,
And vice versa, that young person could be taking advantage of all their riches and their creature comforts
yes,
and playing
yes,
them for a sap.
but
Uh,
exactly, yeah.
so who's the victim in that? Like,
And you'd never know unless you actually looked and
mhm.
analyzed. And that's where I think we should be slow to judge.
Yeah.
We should always be that way. Like, okay, all right, well, this appears this way, but that's the starting point. And then you go and you dig in and you're like, collect facts and put it together and put all the puzzle pieces together to form a
Right.
picture. And because
And hypocrisy also slips
mm-hmm,
in there often because
yes,
when it's Madonna dating a 20-year-old or whatever, then that's okay. That's more power to her, right? Like,
yep,
well, hang on.
yeah,
Uh,
it's the
that
same
that
thing.
doesn't
Just flip
track, you know?
flip genders, and why is that suddenly a problem?
Hmm.
Like, if it's a problem there, it should be a problem here. Like
Right.
yeah.
But, like those things don't automatically trigger a response in my brain. Like I don't automatically see a problem there. And of course, people like immediately jump to these assumptions. Oh, well, they were obviously grooming that person or something. And it's like, well, like what I just said, how do you know it wasn't the other way around?
Mm-hmm.
Where, like I
The
even,
youth is the person who's youthful is utilizing their youth and beauty and stuff to
yeah,
entice an older person who may be feeling like they're a little desperate, or maybe they're looking to reconnect with that time in their
I
past.
have a minute microscopy about grooming in adult relationships. Like you don't even have to have a kid in the equation.
No,
This this
no,
this happens all the time.
it
Like
does. Yeah. Well, and
so.
that's where knowledge and education comes in. And I think a lot of this stuff is propaganda.
Mhm.
The knee jerk reaction to any of this stuff. It's like, well, okay, it's more nuanced than that. Look at remember how much of a controversy Mary Kay Letourneau. Remember that
Yeah, yeah.
back in the day, she was an older teacher and hooked up with a student who was way younger, and everybody was freaking out. But it's like they,
They're still together.
yeah, yeah, like they got married and they have a happy life, and it's like, all right. So I guess my question would be, where is the where is the harm?
Yeah.
What's the fault with that? Like, I don't think anybody could, because it's like, well, okay, enough time has passed, and if it was that bad, you would see some kind of damage occur, but there
Mm.
isn't any.
Yeah. I think they might have recently got divorced or something, or maybe
But I
one of
mean,
them
that's a long
died.
time.
Did one of them die?
Maybe that's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
anyway, like I knew we both know a guy that actually ran into them at a bar and like sat and chat with them, and like they're totally nice people.
mhm, yeah.
Um and because we're all from Washington.
Mhm,
Um but yeah, like if you just went off of what the media fed you, oh,
mhm.
what horrible people. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Oh, and
like
the younger person is automatically a victim.
right, right. And he actually kind of put the moves on her.
Mhm.
So um, that's
Oh,
a that's a
I can
great
say,
example.
when
Like,
I was his age, I would totally. There were some teachers that, yep, just saying, and it would not have harmed me in any
yeah,
way.
I mean, let's talk from a biological standpoint
Mhm.
for a second here, being that I'm a biologist. Yeah,
Yeah.
in that age, like your body is technically ready for that stuff, and your hormones are going to tell you that's what you want, and that's what
Yeah.
you're going to be driven toward. And now, does that necessarily correlate with your maturity and all this societal mores and stuff that we've
No.
constructed? No, of course not. But should it automatically just quash it all? Like,
Well, and
not
we
necessarily.
societally we don't seem to have a problem with people making huge life decisions when they're 18, right? Like that's not a
Right.
problem. Like you have
Right. We
one
draw a really
birthday.
hard line there.
Yeah.
Like, tomorrow, that's okay. Not today.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're totally mature to make those decisions now.
Mhm.
Um, which and I agree with you that it should be like, hey, maybe you need we need to look at it from a more nuanced perspective that people should be encouraged to take their time to work through things and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, yeah,
Well,
you
you have a
should.
child prodigy that goes to medical school when they're like 15, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You know
Yeah.
how much of an enormous stress that is for
Oh
a
yeah.
15-year-old to handle? Like, I,
Mm-hmm.
I I was in college in my 30s, early 30s, and I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't know if I can do this.
Well, and the other thing I think that's often ignored with relationships like that is how it can, like the positive, the symbiotic side of things. Because if you think about it, when you have this broad age gap, um, it yes, there could be somebody taking advantage of somebody in either direction,
Mhm.
but also you can have mutual benefit where like a symbiotic relationship where like the sum is greater than the parts, where oh, somebody young and coming up and they're trying to get their feet on the ground and stuff, and you have this person who's already established and they can like help guide them, and they're wise and stuff like that. And you also have the youthful energy that can help the older person feel young again, where otherwise maybe they're feeling kind of old and lost or something. So there's benefits there for all sides. It's like it's case by case.
Look at Michael Jackson, like a
Mm-hmm.
child star
Yeah.
grows up as one of the biggest adult stars even,
Mm-hmm.
and
If
then
not the
there's all this,
biggest.
yeah, and there's all this controversy around like his associations with younger kids and stuff. Now, from a completely objective point of view, from everything we could see, that was all above the board. That was just like a person trying to fill like kind of a traumatic void, connecting them back to their own missing childhood, and they were doing it in, you know, possibly a pretty healthy way.
Yeah, well, and it's the only way he knew how, I guess. Like
Yeah,
trying to like he probably hit a point where he's had all this fame and fortune and he's just like, whatever. What I miss is like I wanted to be a kid.
yeah.
And it shows. Now, if he had just some kind of concrete compound and brought kids in and hung out, I'd be like, but no, it was like a playground essentially,
Hmm. Yeah,
where he wanted to have fun. He wanted to be a kid again because he didn't have that. If you look at his family upbringing, it was pretty harsh.
yeah.
And so
I'll
yeah,
say
he.
this, his name hasn't so far popped up in these Epstein emails. So
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
if he was a major star with those proclivities, he'd probably have been on that flight
no,
log.
for sure. Yeah,
Just saying.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, like I've been, critical and skeptical of Michael Jackson before, but like, given what's unraveling these days,
Mhm.
not seeing that connection right there actually kind of speaks volumes because
Well, and he also led a very private life, so it's like we don't know the facts. All
yeah,
we have is like these, the Inquirer or something saying that, oh, reporting on stuff, and it's like, well, that isn't facts. You can't trust that.
yeah,
But of course, we've been propagandized and conditioned. to react a certain way to certain things. And so people just, instead of stopping at like, oh, okay, well, that could be sus, and then digging deeper, or if there's no answers, just leaving it at that, they will fill the gaps with things that are not true.
Well, now we have
Assumption.
AI to contend with.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, geez.
And
Is
AI
this
is
is this a
also
real article that about something that actually happened, or did AI just fucking hallucinate?
and the awful thing about that is, so AI, like when it comes to articles and things like that, um it's it's being trained on data that's out there. Okay, well, like say other articles and things, and papers and documents and stuff. Well, so now that more and more AI articles have been created, AI is now referencing its own product. So you can see where the problem is there. It's like, when you dub a tape over and over, like you dub a tape, hand it to your friend, they dub that tape, hand it to their
Mhm.
friend. Pretty soon it's just like muddy and you can't hear anything, which is why people
This is how the Bible came to be.
thought. But I mean, that's why people have this notion in their head that cassettes were terrible. Like
Mhm.
cassettes sounded awful because of that. But actually, cassettes are almost like CD quality. They're pretty good. Um, but see, it's the experiences people have, and the word of mouth things going around and everybody talking about it, and it kind of conditions you to think a certain way.
Mhm.
um, and and I see that with this is like, we're led to believe that it's black and white, to feed into Michael Jackson, I
Michael
guess one of his
Jackson, yeah.
songs, black or white. Yeah. But that is what how people are, that it's like, it's it's either this or that. There's no room, there's no wiggle room, there's no room for like there being anything in between. Which, if you look at it, there's nothing in the world that's black and white. Everything is a measure of in between. It's all gray, it's shades of gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dating yourself, yeah.
Yeah, I remember cassette tapes in cars, and even 8 tracks.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I even had a reel to reel in my car. No, I'm just kidding.
There was a vinyl, like a record player that they made for cars, which was an engineering marvel, honestly, because how
Well,
do you
yeah,
keep it from skipping? Like they couldn't even figure out how to keep CDs from skipping in the 90s. I remember that.
right.
So somehow back in like the 60s, they made a record player that you could put in. Yeah. Anyway. Um, oh man. I but that is a thing that I think it's an effect that, we're all old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. This is true. Yeah. Well, hey, but the good thing is, um, the younger generation, like the teens of today, are getting into the stuff that even like before we were a thing. Like typewriters and reel to reels and old radios, tube radios and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
it's kind of cool. I like
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. There was a point I wanted to make about this
Oh,
whole
sorry.
fourth turn thing, and I
Yeah.
kind of forgot what it was, but it was during the time we were talking about like Michael Jackson and stuff, but um maybe maybe it was something about like the whole global aspect of it, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe that's why we won't necessarily see such a marked change,
Yeah.
just because of how much difference there is going on everywhere. But
It's diffused by the rest of the world.
mhm,
Obviously, the US is a big deal. So if something big happens in the US, it does affect pretty much everywhere else. But only to varying degrees, obviously.
yeah,
And of course, other places do, like, it's a feedback loop. Like
mhm,
things that happen in Europe affect the US to an extent. Things that happen in South America affect the US. Like, maybe not like as pronounced as the other way around, but it does. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we're a global network, and especially with the internet. Um, back in the day, you didn't know really what, unless you saw it on the news or read it in the paper. You didn't know what was going on in another country.
Right.
Um, Hardly even in your own country half the time. But now it's like, yeah, you can find out exactly what's going on to the minute anywhere in the world. And media though, like, because that's something, and maybe this is a thing that's the good side of alternative media, is how raw it is. Where like back in the day, you'd have reporters collecting information, they'd bring it back, it would be edited, and it would pass through a bunch of hands, and everybody would kind of make changes to it, and then they'd give it the green light, and then Walter Cronkite would report on it. you
Yeah.
know but now it's like, yeah, people can live stream, you could see exactly what's happening from multiple angles sometimes.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good thing, because it's really, the camera never lies. And I think that's good, because now we've circumvented the media, the establishment, to
Well,
where like
one
the common person can report on what's going on. You can have one person go out and check something out and record a video or take pictures of something, and they don't have to answer to anybody.
one challenge to critical thinking that's arising because of that is this overabundance of skepticism.
Yeah.
Like because of all that, because of being aware of how easy it is to skew these things, you can have multiple camera angles in real time of the same event and have people think like, well, maybe we don't have enough of the picture. Like, at what point is enough enough? Or is this just some kind of mental defensive mechanism to guard against realizing that things are not pretty and neat and orderly in the way that you want them to be,
I
but
think
they're actually quite messy.
yes, I think you're definitely onto something there. That is correct.
Hmm.
That people don't want to know. It used to be
It's
like,
this ostrich effect, right?
well,
Like,
in the Vietnam War, right? For instance, they were reporting, they had reporters and stuff, and they would send film back, but it would be sanitized, right? And
yeah,
it would have to pass through a filter, which of course, well, look into the CIA and its connection with the news media, and you'll see that, yeah, they couldn't report on certain things. They weren't allowed to. And still to this day, that whole thing is still going on. So anything unfavorable to the state was unlikely to see the light of day, I guess. And now, yeah, I mean, you've got people like the Russo-Ukraine war. There are people just with their phone in a combat zone, just streaming. You can just watch it live. Um, and I think that shift is so dramatic, because it's kind of like pulling back the curtain, that now you see the reality of things that used to seem so simple and so clear and not so dangerous or crazy or whatever. And now it's like, oh shit, that look, I had no idea, you know. And people are inclined to kind of turn their back on it and ignore it, and yeah, be skeptical of like, well, there's no way it could be that bad. There's no way. And
yeah.
but then again, that's part of this whole fourth turning thing, that I think that we're hitting this crescendo where like, I think it'll
We're
reach.
about to be hit by a smooth criminal, or
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hmm. Or struck by, I don't know.
yeah.
um yeah, man, good
One of
song.
the coolest bass lines, by the way.
Oh, I know, and the video was awesome.
Yeah.
That's one thing, Michael Jackson, his videos, holy shit, those were good, really good. But yeah, anyway, I think we're kind of reaching this point where people are starting to get fed up, and maybe for a lot of people, they don't even know what they're fed up about, but they know that they're sick of it.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll catalyze. Eventually, I think more and more truthfulness will emerge to the point where people finally realize, like, oh, this is the reality of things. Like all the things that we thought were good are bad, and all the things that we thought are bad are good, and like it'll flip or something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
And like it's all been lies this whole time, and which it has been. Like you know, look at politicians, look at the media. It's just constant lies all the time. Like, and if they're telling the truth, it's kind of a couch truth where it's like, yeah, I mean, it's sort of factual, but you're leading people to think, to come to a conclusion that you would not naturally come to. Uh,
Yeah. I tell you, like the media in Germany is a very different experience than the media in the US.
mm-hmm.
It's definitely not sensationalistic like that. Uh,
More
it's
like
it's
old school, like how
it's
it
old
used to
school.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much like I remember from my childhood and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
very factual, very serious,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well, and
like
that's like,
professional. It's
yeah,
professional.
professional, and yeah, and of course that journalistic integrity,
Mhm.
um, which we've pretty much lost in the US, except for alternative media tends to be a little bit more in line with that, depending. Obviously, it depends because
Yeah.
now it's like anybody can do it. So hit or miss. But at least there are people who have that as their MO.
Mhm.
Yeah, because like it used to be, you know, like because I like the old newspapers, they had opinion sections, which makes sense. It's
Yeah.
segregated. That you go to the opinion section, you read opinion pieces. Um, but like the regular news tended to be more fact based, so it would just state what happened as far as we know it. And if there was an opinion, it was a quote from somebody. Like they interviewed somebody, and that somebody said this.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. If there's any opinion, it shouldn't be the newscaster injecting their own philosophy into things. It ought to be a man on the street, like, oh, you got a mic in their face, and you're asking them, hey, what did you see? And they're like, oh man, I saw this and that.
And
That's how
there'd
it
also
should
be
be.
a fact check to counter the opinion,
Mm-hmm.
which, to be fair, I do still see that happen
Mm-hmm.
uh, in in certain articles that I'll read. There'll be some kind of quote, and then it'll just say something factual, like, uh, you know, according to whatever study, like here's the actual numbers, blah blah blah, or something,
Yeah.
and then just leave it at that. Like there's no other spin on it. There's no adjectives thrown in there, and like
And what
that's
that does,
refreshing to see.
yeah, and that lets the viewer or the reader form their own opinion based on the data provided, as
Hmm.
it should be,
Yeah,
as it should be. And
yeah,
you know, it used to be back in the days of the newspapers. Obviously, now it's kind of more like the comment section on videos, but people could write letters to the editor and they would publish them randomly, usually like a response to something, some article from a previous
yeah.
issue or something. And that's good. We need that,
Hmm.
because that's a further check against corruption.
Right.
And anytime I see like a news channel's video where the comments are turned off, I'm like, oh shit. You know, there's some lies in the mix there. Like that something's afoot. Like if they can't stand scrutiny, then you know there's something wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes people just start infighting too.
This is true. Yeah, but
And it
you
gets,
can mitigate that without having to shut the comments off.
yeah.
Especially if you're a big news channel like Fox News or CNN or something. They got staff to do that. You know, they can like just delete all that hate and stuff, the flame wars that are going on, and keep the civility still present.
Yeah. Ah, man. Yeah. It is interesting how we find our way to something completely other than where we
Where
started.
we
And,
started. Yeah.
like getting into like media integrity and stuff with,
Mm-hmm.
starting with the child marriage in the US and this
Mhm.
fourth turning thing, and melding those together, we end up with the media. And that's
Mhm.
interesting and telling in itself, I think, because
Yeah.
how much of what we consider right is guided by what we're told
A lot.
is right, you know.
A lot. Believe me, a hell of a lot is, yeah, because I think people have, well, I can only speak to the US because that's been my experience, but when it comes to education and our social conditioning and stuff, we've been led to the idea of being a passive consumer of information, not an active researcher. And
Yeah,
yeah, flat earthers, they're always like, do your own research, and but,
they don't even know what that means.
no, no, but you should, like, you should
Yeah,
actually dig a little bit deeper, like fact check things yourself, look at more sources of information, especially if it's a sensational thing. Anytime, and I say this all the time, anytime you hear a piece of news and you start feeling emotional, that's the time you should stop and be like, why am I feeling emotional? Is it because they're wanting me? They're trying to manipulate me through emotion? Or is it because there's a real thing that does deserve emotion? Right?
yeah.
Like, there's a video of somebody beating a dog, right? Okay, well, yeah, that elicits emotion, of course. But if they're
Hmm.
telling you something happened, like, well, you remember the prelude to the first Iraq invasion, where they had that lady who came on and was talking about how the Iraqi soldiers were coming into the hospital and taking babies out of the incubators and leaving them to die and all this stuff. And she was crying, and that sob story, like, motivated the public to get behind this military action. Well, turns out that was all made up. That never
Uh,
happened. It was
is it
completely fake.
Desert Storm era?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
a
The
bit
first one.
young for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, and of course, we know the yellow cake uranium, which that was a fear based thing, not a sadness or anger based thing. But that was also fabricated too.
Mm,
Never
mm.
happened. Didn't exist. But yet everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we'll get behind that," because some authoritative figure said a thing, and we were like, "Oh yeah, Colin Powell. You know, he's the big dog. Like, of course, he's not going to lie to us, right?" Well, it turns out he kind of did. And people died as a result of that. And and that's where, and that's what I'm saying is, like, we need to, like, and this goes into the child marriage thing and the age gap thing and all this stuff, where whenever you start to feel emotional behind something, you should stop yourself and ask yourself where that emotion is coming from. And
Right.
is it because you're being told to feel that? Or is it because you've been conditioned to react that way? That
Now, when it comes to the war stuff, like leading you into fear and a sense of self-preservation as a secondary emotion there,
mm-hmm,
or you know, eliciting feelings that spark your sense of justice,
mm-hmm,
stuff like that is pretty obvious. When it comes to, you know, enrage over child marriage and stuff, I don't really see how there would be much of a uh what's the word I'm looking for? I don't see how somebody could be spinning that to be like going the other direction on that.
mm-hmm.
Right, like there is actually reason to feel upset that that's a thing that's being allowed, especially when you think of it like when you plug in certain variables and just play the scenario in your head as an inference logic game,
Mm-hmm.
like if I were a pedophile and I wanted to have sex with a 13-year-old, maybe I could just marry her and then it's totally okay.
Yeah,
And as
and
long
I
as
would,
that's legal, it's still totally okay. Like
sure. And
then
I
you
think,
can you can kind of see like how that actually is probable,
well,
what's
and
going
and it
on.
it does come down to like whether something is voluntary. That's the key factor in all situations, because an involuntary action, like plugging in another variable, arranged marriages, where
Right.
you have no choice, your family decided for you that you're
Yeah.
going to marry this person. See, now you didn't voluntarily choose that. That's
Right.
a thing against your will, and you're probably not
At
wise
any
enough.
age, that's
And
fucked up.
yeah, but you're when you're young, you're probably not wise enough and experienced enough to know that that is wrong. That like you have a choice to not do that.
Yeah.
And so that right there, that's where it's like, okay, yeah, I take serious issue with that. Now, if it's something completely voluntary and you can analyze it and be like, well, yeah, I mean, that seems like everybody agrees, um, and they're like at least moderately adult enough, uh, mature enough to make that decision, then sure,
You
I
mean, I
suppose.
mean, would I have gotten married at 16? Yeah. Would it
Mm.
have lasted? Fuck no.
No,
Like, it didn't
exactly.
last even though I waited until, I was 20. Like
Hmm.
it's barely lasted 2 months. You
Exactly.
know?
Well, and that
But
brings up a good point. Is like, hey, as long as you have an out where it's like society isn't condemning you because you get a divorce,
mm,
when it's clear that there's problems, there's a chasm in the relationship,
right. Which
and
used to be the Catholic Church. Like
mhm,
it's a little bit more lax now, but like
yeah,
that's also kind of a fucked up situation. Like
mhm,
where well, going back to using shame as a tool for your ethical infrastructure
mhm.
can be taken way overboard.
I yes, I
Uh,
agree.
uh, Catholics are good at taking shame overboard.
Yes. Oh, yeah, more than almost anybody else, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking from direct experience
Hmm.
as a baptized Catholic
Yeah.
atheist, uh,
Baptized Catholic atheist.
draw conclusions from that as you will.
Well, and I would say, maybe there's a good middle ground when it, like specifically that when it comes to the way society perceives things. A marriage is twofold. Well, when you have religion in the mix, there's the state side of things, that is the contract, and then there's the church side of things, and
Right.
that is the, I guess, contract with you and your partner and God, or whatever, your God. Um, and those are completely separate. Like
Yeah.
obviously the state has no control over God, and theoretically God would have control over the state, but I've never seen God exercise that power ever. um,
Well, I I would take it a step further back on both fronts. The state is really just a vessel for societal recognition of
mhm,
your conjoinment
yeah,
and your emotional connection to one another. Like that powerful bond is just being kind of funneled through the
expressed,
religion angle of things. But like
yeah,
for two non-religious people, like some people are like, why would you even get married if you're an atheist? And it's like, well, it's it's a thing between two people to say like, you know what, like let's go through this together, like,
yeah. Well, and
you know,
signing a contract is a big deal,
yeah.
apart from the church and all that. Now, I would add, from an atheistic standpoint, the church side would be friends and family.
Hmm.
That like you want to hold things together because you don't want to disappoint them. And now, of course, there may come a point where you need to go your separate ways because holding it together is actually detrimental to all parties involved.
Right.
And it should be okay to dissolve that contract and be like, okay, well, and honestly, it should be I don't know. There's a lot of vitriol when it comes to divorces. A lot of times, people get really feisty, and when it should just be a simple thing, like, okay, I guess we'll cut our losses and we'll divvy things up and go our separate ways. Like, I think if you're in a caustic situation with a partner, um, the wouldn't it be, who cares what material things you come away with as long as you come away with your sanity, right? Like, I just leave me alone. I want like, would, who cares about the cars and properties? And I mean, as long as you're not being, shafted, I guess. um but you should be able
Giggity.
to you should be able to come to an agreement apart from the state and the church, to where it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll divvy things up and there you go and see you later, I guess. um
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things do go that way, like fairly innocuous
I
in
guess that
nature.
comes back, circles back to the media, where it's like we really only see divorce court stuff,
Right.
like the dramatic stuff, right?
Hmm.
Like, imagine if you went to watch an episode of Divorce Court and it was absolutely chill, and people
You
were
could
like, yeah,
you could
okay.
just go downtown and go sit in on court for a day and watch some divorce proceedings, and
Mm-hmm.
I bet you anything, most of it's pretty boring.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Not,
like
definitely not worthy of being televised.
my first divorce was done through the mail. Did, we didn't go to court at all.
Yeah.
We just let, let like the court handle it on its own,
Mm-hmm.
and because it was, I mean, there was really nothing to divvy up. It was a 2 month marriage, and
Yeah.
second time we were in court just because we could, I guess. Like it was
Yeah.
still amicable in that sense, I guess, and very
Sometimes it's,
boring and just, rudimentary stuff. Like
mm-hmm.
show
Yeah.
up, say, yeah, we want a divorce, sign here. Okay, now you're divorced.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
And I think you're right that that would constitute the bulk of what you would see.
Here in Germany, if you want to get a divorce, you have to live apart for 1 year while still married
Not a bad
before
idea.
they allow it. And yeah, like that gives you time to breathe, reconcile or not, but
It also
like
gives you the
work things
opportunity.
out
Yeah,
over
it gives
time.
you the opportunity to see if that's really what you want as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, a cool off period, because yeah, people, sometimes people feel trapped in those
Or a
kinds of
logistics
situations.
period,
Sure, yeah.
do your own negotiating,
Hmm.
save the court time
That would
for
be nice. Yeah.
just the official stuff. And
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, like a lot of the court TV stuff, very Jerry Springer-ish, and
Hmm.
it's like, that really shouldn't be happening. Like,
No.
when you go to court, you should just be professional, get it done quick.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of important stuff that needs to be heard, and I don't know.
It is kind of funny. Like, and I think I've been kind of studying this from a psychological standpoint for a long time, of like, why do people behave the way they do when it comes to relationships like that?
Mm,
Because like the circumstances leading up to people wanting a divorce is typically a lot of some kind of emotional thing, like frustration or anger or whatever, jealousy, who knows, it could be a mix of all the above. But like, when they're in the relationship, they hate each other, right?
yeah.
But like, once it comes time to part ways, now all of a sudden they don't want to part ways, or they're like, oh, I'm going to do everything in my power to get you. Like, why not just leave?
Yeah.
What's the problem with that? Why? You hate this
I,
person.
I
Why not
think
just walk away?
I think there are well, I know there are people who are kind of addicted to the drama, and
Yeah.
like a few years back when I had that, I mean, speaking again of the adult grooming situation,
Mm-hmm.
I had that very short relationship that was very fast moving, and she had her kids calling me dad like
Mm.
after a couple weeks and stuff, and just totally like manipulating me, and then kind of flipped and took me to court for stalking and dragged that shit out. So like the night before every court date, new evidence would show up like, oh, I found a GPS tracker on my car. Like all this
Mm.
shit from like a TV show, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And oh,
Hmm.
my car was towed and he was wearing a disguise and pretended to be, and it's like, oh my God.
So
Like
much drama.
by like the third fucking time I had to like show up for an extension, like I could tell the judge was tired of it and
Hmm.
like everyone was just fucking tired of it and she had like a pattern of doing that with guys, like going to
Yeah.
court with guys and it's like some people get off on that, I
They
guess. Like
they
I don't
do
understand it,
they
but
do, and also there are people who just put themselves in situations constantly. Like, and my one of my rules is beware the person in a state of constant conflict or drama or emergencies, right? Like some kind, there's always something bad happening. Like, oh my god, this is happening. And the next day, it's
mhm.
that's happening, and oh, this and that. And it's like, you know, most people don't have that. I have a feeling you're just attracting that shit. And
Yeah.
that's a bad soup to put your spoon in. I'll say that. So just avoid anybody who like is just always there's always a dramatic thing happening. Like because I voice of experience. I've
Yeah.
been there. Like
Yeah.
every single person who is like that has been awful. Like an
We have
awful partner.
we have a mutual friend on Facebook that often like 99% of her posts are about thirsty guys sending her inappropriate messages and her
Mm.
removing them from her friends list. At some point it's like, why do you keep doing this? Like
Mm-hmm.
and like advertising all of the like this is a clear attention grab,
Yeah.
like
Well,
like
and you can also analyze things from a pattern recognition standpoint. It's like, maybe it's not the rest of the world that's the problem. Maybe the problem is you. Maybe
the
you're the
crazies are
problem.
real. Totally.
Yes. Yep. Been there, done that. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, one of them at
Oh
least.
yeah.
Oh boy.
Yep.
And they're hard to get rid of. Once they're entrenched, like good luck getting rid of them.
Yeah.
The one that left my house in a cop car.
Yep.
So that's the only way. But like it didn't have to come to that. I probably should have been smarter and be able to recognize the signs
Hmm.
early on. But I was kind of dumb at that age.
It's
Uh,
easier to look back in retrospect and
mm-hmm.
see these things than when you're actually in the moment and 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 that's the thing, like to remember is uh critical thinking is important and it it's also important to be forgiving with yourself for forgetting to or kind of doing it incorrectly in the moment because
Ignoring the warning signs and carrying on.
yeah,
Yeah,
because from here's the sad reality of reality. You always have just one vantage point at any one given time.
this is true.
You it's impossible to have two vantage points at the same time. If you're
Mm-hmm.
reading about or listening to somebody else's vantage point, you have that right then and there, and that's it. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, so how can you actually make these informed decisions in real time? You can't,
Well, I know, and especially when it comes to relationships, dating, and stuff, people don't really expose their true self until later on.
Yeah,
Like they tend to put on a show, a
the second or third
facade.
court date.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but like you can definitely, if you're careful and cautious and observant, you can recognize patterns. Um, but that comes with experience. So basically, you have to get your ass kicked a few times before you realize, like, oh yeah, that dude walking down the street, he's probably dangerous. Like I can just tell by the way his shadow moves, because you had your ass kicked so many times. And the same thing, relationships are the same way. It's like when you're young and hopeful and forgiving of uh, errors and issues, um, you tend to look past things until you realize how things really are. And then it's like, oopsie, I made a mistake. Uh-oh, what do I do? How do I get out of this? Um, and hopefully you come out the other side intact and then carry on. But now you have a tool in your tool belt to utilize, another piece of detector kit, essentially. Um, yeah. And I don't know. That's one of the things, like, because we have talked about hyper skepticism. That like you get to this point where you're just like doubting everything, and that's also a bad place to be, because then you're
Yeah.
you're so focused on the math, so to speak, that you ignore the experience, right? Like getting to know somebody and having things like that. You're always like in the back of your mind, you're always like, I don't know, when are they going to snap? um, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so that's something you learn over time, I think, to
Yeah.
temper that, and so that it balance,
Well,
right?
take the scientific method, right? Like when when you look at things on a grand scheme, there's
Mm-hmm.
never an end to the questions, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You never actually know everything. However, when you're designing an experiment and you're looking to solve one particular question with an answer,
Mm-hmm.
and you've gathered enough evidence to answer that one question, of course you've created 20 other questions,
Yeah.
but those are trying to answer a different question or 20 different other questions,
Yes.
technically. So it's important to keep those in mind, but to compartmentalize and set them aside and say, okay, I've
Yeah.
answered this question. I can now uh, make a decision with the information I've discovered based on that,
Mm-hmm.
and and be able to stop asking the questions
Yeah.
and make your decision. Like,
Exactly. Well, and as I always say, there's no such thing as truth. Truth is not a destination, it's a vector.
hmm,
And so, like, there comes a point where you're like, okay, this is close enough. Maybe I don't, like, I can stop digging and stop questioning and stop doubting. Because that becomes, if you get obsessed with that, it becomes an obsession where you end up in this cycle of never ending doubt, and where it's like there's no answer, and you keep asking more and more questions, and it's like, okay, just stop. Like, it'll be okay. Just focus on maybe a couple things and
yeah,
worry about those, and don't worry so much about the little stuff, because the human mind is quite an incredible computational piece of kit. um, but it also gets carried away with
yeah,
thinking a little bit too much, I think.
yeah,
um, which then also could be something that some of these people who are problem partners or whatever, they're beholden to that effect as well. And I think that's something that it goes back to education. I think we need to give people the tools to be able to manage their own minds and their own affairs and things like that. um, so hopefully there's less crazies out there.
yeah. And to put yourself into the shoes of these childhood marriages or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're 13 and trying to navigate these complicated relationship quandaries with the amount of life experience you've gained. Like
Which wouldn't be that
that's
much at that point
yeah,
in time.
like however much uh, like we've pondered and debated the the lines to draw with things like autonomy and stuff like that. But like there are kind of obvious answers to certain questions, like should a 13-year-old begin a marriage? It's a pretty hard no, I
I
would
would
say.
say yes. Generally, no. Yeah. I mean, I said yes. I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. The
Yeah,
yes is
yeah.
agreeing with you. But yeah, I would say not.
Mm.
Well, here's the question. Um, at what point can somebody vote? At what point can somebody smoke a cigarette, have a beer? At what point can somebody join the military? You know, those kinds of
Maybe,
things.
maybe
And
all this
if
stuff should have a certain kind of test, like
sure, it'd be like a coming of age sort
a
of event.
litmus test, not like
Yeah.
a knowledge test necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
um, you know,
This goes back to kind of my community idea of where I think the best way is not to have the state or the courts or any of those things decide. It should be like the elders, right? If you
yeah,
want to make that big decision, you come before the elders and explain your case. And they ask you questions and you answer, and maybe they give you some, I don't
yeah,
know, a test of some sort to see if you're for real. And if you're for real, then okay, well, then fine, you can make that decision. But if
yeah. I
you're,
mean, if you're 13 years old and you can convince your legal guardians to uh, speak on your behalf to say, yeah, this is okay, then okay, like
sure, yeah.
they're old enough that they shouldn't be too easily swayed
Mm-hmm.
by a bad argument,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully.
And, so maybe you made a good argument. Maybe you're a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it would be nice if we had a society where things were based on nuance and merit and
Yeah,
logic and conversation. But we're not,
exactly.
you know, like
No, and that
we
goes,
operate within our means. And
this is true. But
so
I
while
think
there might
having,
be an exception to the case here and there, like for the most part, like these child marriages should not be happening.
oh, I agree. Because especially with the way things currently stand, it's absolutely not a good thing.
Yeah.
If it were a totally different structure, like I was saying, you have the town council or the elders or whatever that if you want to make a decision that normally wouldn't be allowed, you state your case, um, and
Yeah.
they make a decision based on their own experiences because they've been there, done that, um, and they can decide on whether your case is worthy
Yeah.
of being accepted. I would love to see much more of that.
And
And
then,
because the other thing too is when you have a more localized structure like that, um, typically they're going to know you or at least know of you. They're going to be able to talk to people that
yeah,
your neighbors, your friends, that kind of thing. Whereas when you're talking the court system or the government, like it is completely detached from reality, completely.
right.
It's its own, well, I call it the ivory tower. It really is. Like it exists in its own parallel universe that has nothing to do with our universe. Um, and so it can't make decisions for us because it doesn't know us. It doesn't even care about us.
Yeah.
It's like, when you show up to court, they, they don't recognize you. They're not like, oh, Casey. Oh, Eric. Hey, how's it?
I mean,
What?
you hope they don't.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Good point. Good point.
oh, you're back again, huh?
Okay, maybe for the first time. All right. First time you show up in court. Yeah. Like if they knew you, then that would be a whole different thing. Or they're like, oh yeah, you're the son of my neighbor's friend or something. Like there's a connection there. And and so I think that there's a greater interest in making a good decision. And we don't have that.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. The law is the law. And there it is. There it stands. And smack the gavel and we're done. Um,
You know who we need making decisions for us is there was a guy, a great quote. He said, I have made good decisions in the past. I have made good decisions in the future.
Yep.
Somebody that can see into the future and have already made the good decisions. Like
Yes,
that's someone we need.
we
Mr.
do.
Dan Quayle should
Dan
be.
Quayle, man, those quotes, dude. Jesus. Well, and that shows somebody who, like, if you look at the Quayleisms, the Bushisms are also really good too. There's
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
like humans. I believe humans and fish can live together or something like that. Um, but
Sounds like something a mobster would say.
I know you're gonna live with the fish. Um, um, but like that just shows how we put this faith in these people, and that's the end of it. Essentially, these are presidential people, and they're totally dumb.
Mm.
So why do we put faith in that? Why do we, over and over and over again? They give us pillow talk, and we elect them, and then they do the exact opposite of what they said they were going to do, or just nothing, or I don't know, random shit. And but yeah, we keep playing the game as if like, well, I guess that didn't work. We'll just keep doing the same thing again, and hope that this time we get it right.
Yeah. They're all just kind of figureheads and it's not to say that that isn't like an important or powerful position to hold because it absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
It it is a position that people look up to for guidance, for, inspiration or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's how we should be framing it, like,
Yeah.
you know, we it's actually kind of unfair to say like, oh, they constantly break their promises because it's not up to them. They're not kings or dictators or anything. Like
This is true.
they
Yeah.
have to convince a lot of other
A
people
lot. Yes.
to go a certain way, and you win some, you lose some. And
Mm-hmm.
what's more important is how they conduct themselves on the daily.
Uh, yeah,
You
I
know,
agree. Yeah.
like, you know, people like JFK, like, Reagan, Obama, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever you thought of their policies, and some of those guys had some pretty shitty policies here
Yeah.
and there, but they also had some good ones or whatever. For the
Mm-hmm.
most part, on the day to day, they were like good guys,
Yeah, yeah.
like
You could say Carter because I came
Carter
in at the
too.
tail end of
Yeah.
Carter. He was an absolutely terrible president as far as like the effect of his presidency. However, generally he was a good guy, and he was well intentioned, and like just kind of almost like, as far as presidents go, I'd say he was the most regular president we've ever had. Like in
I
at least
urge people
in
to check out my last minute microscopy on what if Carter won a second term because
Mhm.
like I think he actually got a really shit end of the deal when it comes to how history portrays
Yeah, well, and
him.
even
Like,
Reagan too, like same kind of thing, and it's like the perfect storm. Essentially, it's like, well, you want to make things better, but you can't make things better because all, like you said, you got to convince all these other people, and they all don't want to do that, or they want to do their own thing. Like too many cooks in the kitchen, essentially.
yeah,
Um, and so like what you end up with at the end of the day is kind of like a shit burger. And yeah, in Carter, it's like the things he was talking about made sense. But like, oh, well, when you pass it through the filter of Congress, out shits like this terrible, awful thing. And yeah, but then people point the finger at, oh, well, you're the guy, you're the reason. And it's like, well,
yeah,
yeah, it's a complex system that
yeah,
it isn't just one person. One person can't do things. And maybe that's a good thing. I would say it's probably a good thing because it does kind of keep the people who want to run roughshod over things kind of in check. That's good. Um, but it also kind of gets in the way of like doing things we want to do. Because like
yeah,
that's where I think community stuff, we shouldn't have people all the way at the top. It should be a community structured kind of system where it's more local. And if there's any kind of top level structure, it's a much more fundamental, basic sort of thing. Like, oh, okay, we're here to keep the peace. We're here to make sure that, I don't know, people don't invade and take over, and we're here to settle disputes. Simple as that. That's what I'd like to see at the federal level. Like, okay, there you
Yeah.
go.
Well,
Oh yeah, I know we've been.
in a perfect world.
I know. Well, that's what we're aiming for. That's what we
Yeah.
do here. Hmm.
What's that saying? Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still among the stars.
Yeah, I. That's a perfect way to end it. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Well, hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Um, Comments are always welcome, of course, uh, and be good to each other. And
Yeah, shout out to our new commenter here, Old Rat 889. I don't believe we've seen this person in the chat before, so thanks for deep sink diving with us into child marriages, the fourth turn, and all the other
the
stuff that
media and everything else.
yeah.
Yeah, welcome aboard. We do this every Sunday, so
Yep.
you're always welcome.
There's almost 1,000 other videos you can check out, so
We've been very active over the
if
last
you
few
if you
years.
haven't got your fix of kitchen sink microscopy yet, you've got no excuse not to keep going.
All right, everybody. Well, we'll see you next time. And yeah,
Turds flow in the sewer, can't change the flow. Nice.
this this very true. That okay? There we go. That's how we're gonna end it. Thanks for that final comment. All right. Well,
Are you
see.
Mike Rowe by chance?
Yeah. All right. Well, see you all